It's time once again for the hardest endurance race in the entire world, the Nürburgring 24 Hours. The iRacing version is upon us once again, and today I'll be giving my tips on racing and most importantly, surviving the green hell. The Nürburgring is one of the most famous tracks in world motorsport. It's hosted the German Grand Prix of Formula One for many years, and whilst most tracks go between 2 to 8 kilometers, the Nürburgring goes over an entire 25 kilometers. It's huge, it winds through the German hills and countryside. It's terrifying, but it is a lot of fun to drive. The 24-hour race at this track is right up there as one of the hardest races to win in the entire world. And the iRacing version is exactly the same. You're dealing with high-speed corners, deathly curbs, walls that are right alongside the track. You've got to deal with nighttime, lots of traffic with really different speed levels of cars. The only thing you won't be dealing with is rain, but that'll probably be in iRacing soon, so you'll have that as well. Today I'll be going through who can enter, what cars you can race, what classes will be running, and I'll also go through the Nürburgring itself, give a couple of tips for how to drive fast there, and some real danger sections of the track as well. Let's get into it. So the 2023 iRacing Nürburgring 24 is being held between the 12th and 14th of May. There are 4 time slots that you can choose to race in, and the main broadcasted slot is the midday Saturday GMT slot. To enter, you need to have a team of drivers between 2 and 16 drivers, though I don't recommend going 16 drivers as that would be like a clown car, and I don't recommend going 2 drivers because that is not enough drivers to get enough rest. I recommend going with around 4 or 5 drivers to a team. Everyone's driver license needs to be at least C class or a D class license with a 4.0 safety rating. And like all races on iRacing, or pretty much all races, it is split off iRating, which means that you'll be paired against drivers of a similar skill level to yourself. So if you're new to the Nürburgring or new to iRacing, don't be scared. As long as you can keep it on the track, you'll have some other people around your speed that you can race against. The field size is 55 cars, which sounds like a lot of cars, but for the Nürburgring, it's actually not that many. And servers will be going live with around 20 minutes of practice and a 25-minute qualifying session, which allows for 2 laps. It sounds like a lot, but you should be able to get 2 laps in, so just send it in qualifying. The incident limit for each team is 100 incident points before you get a drive-through and 20 points for each drive-through after that. And it's for the entire team, so you accumulate incident points one by one. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Otherwise, this race is using a full day-night cycle, and the one thing to keep in mind compared to a lot of other endurance races is that most of the Nordschleife is not lit by floodlights. So you're going to be driving just using your headlights on your car, which means don't crash, don't remove your headlights, because it's a long pitch black drive back to the pit lane. For more information on how these races work, how to join sessions and who to select and all that stuff, I actually recommend watching my previous guide to the 24 hours of Daytona video. I go into a little bit more detail about signing up for the races and things like that. Also, if you've raced this Nürburgring 24 hours before and you have any tips that you recommend, feel free to leave them in the comments. And if you found this useful, give us a like. We really appreciate it. So there are 5 classes to choose from this year, which is the most out of any series or special event in iRacing. The fastest class is GT3, where you have 3 German manufacturers to choose from: the mighty BMW M4 and Mercedes-AMG front-engine cars, and the rear-engine Porsche 911. If you're new to GT3, I'd probably recommend sticking with the Mercedes or the BMW, as they're both front-engined and they tend to deal with curbs a little bit better. But if you really, really want to, you can jump into the Porsche rear-engine GT3 car for a bit more fun, I guess. The next class is GT4, where you have the Aston Martin Vantage or the Porsche 718 Cayman. The Aston is probably the easier car to drive in this class. It's fairly stable and it has really good legs in a straight line. The Porsche is a heap of fun though, and it's personally one of my favorite cars on iRacing. So both cars look fine. I'd just pick whichever one you own or whichever one looks the prettiest. The next three classes are all single make, so you don't have to worry about a bop or choosing different cars. You have the Cup class, which features the Porsche 992 first up, and this car is honestly lovely to drive around the Nordschleife. It handles curbs really, really well, and it's not ridiculously hard to handle. It doesn't have TC and ABS, and it is a fair bit slower than the GT3 cars in the corners, but it's pretty much the same in a straight line. So if you want to be a pain in the butt to all the GT3 cars down the Dottinger, you can pick this car and go as fast as you can. The touring class has the Audi RS3 TCR car, and honestly, I think this car kind of sucks. It's okay, I guess, but it is front wheel drive, and a lot of the corners that are often really sketchy or fun to drive at the Nordschleife are either flat in this car or just like an easy lift and get straight back on it. This is probably the easiest car for this event, in my opinion. So if you want something to play a more scenic way around the Nürburgring 24, I'd recommend picking the TCR. The final class is called Spec, and it features the Toyota GR86. And this car is really, really, really slow. You'll be getting in the way of pretty much every other car in this race, so make sure you know how to hold your line if you're going to race the Toyota, and cross your fingers that the netcode gods smile upon you and you don't get rear-ended at pace by a GT3 car. This car also has a great habit of grip flipping at the slightest inconvenience, as I've found, so try not to hit a curb too hard or you might accidentally barrel roll the thing down a straight. How did it flip? So one of the things that makes the Nürburgring 24 way more difficult than other races is how difficult the track is to learn and to drive. This track has so many corners to learn, including some of the most difficult complexes in all of motorsport. I'm going to quickly go through some of the most important fun or parts that will kill you. I've also created this quick map, which I think quite eloquently describes each section of the track. For starters, we have the Grand Prix section. You can just cruise through the rest of the lap. Make sure you use all the road through the GP circuit. You can kind of leave a lot of time on the table here. Once we enter the Nordschleife, we go straight into the hats and backs section. And this is one of the most fun parts of the track. You're kind of weaving left and right downhill, and there are some curbs here that you can really use to kind of cut the corners and make your car go faster. Some cars love these curbs and some will completely die if you use them though, so make sure you check them before using them in the race. The next big section is Flugplatz, which translates from German to airport. I know my German very well. This section has a rather large jump, which you'll be getting air off and then a kink to the right. This actual version in real life was flattened in 2006 to make the course much safer, but the version on iRacing was before it was flattened. So it's a little bit steeper, there's a bit more of a jump at the end, and you'll be getting air as you go over it. The next main section that we have is Vauxhall. This is a big downhill run into a compression before an uphill run to an ever-tightening chicane. At the top of the hill, most cars love this curb on the left before the run into Adenauer, but some cars will kill you. So, like all curbs, double check them in practice before using them in the race. The next section I'll talk about is the run out of Bergwerk towards Muttkurve and then ultimately the carousel. This is a super high speed section of the track and you're actually running flat out for most of it. Muttkurve will be a flat out or almost flat out corner in most curbs. And I recommend to never go on the outside of it if you're racing another car. I actually raced Dave Cam through here on the weekend in Pesk, and he was on the outside, got some Aussie netcode, and died completely.
Hold your line. Woo. Clear.
I'm very sorry. That was netcode. I recommend not going the outside in the race and protect your neck. The next main section is the carousel, and it's the most famous part of the track. It is a really bumpy U-turn that is super banked. Standard rules apply here. Make sure not to miss the carousel, because if you kind of go up too high and go outside the carousel, you end up losing a huge amount of time. So be a little bit patient, keep your car on the banking and you should be fine through this section. Next up is the roller coaster. So there's a bunch of important corners here, and in my opinion, it is by far the best on the track. There is so much elevation change through here and some really kind of high speed and fun sections. The highlight for me is probably Brunchen, also known as YouTube corner. This is where you see all those video compilations of people taking their like golf there and just like wheel wobbling and losing it on the exit. Make sure not to do that in your race. After the roller coaster, the kind of final important bit of the track for me is the Dottinger, and this straight goes forever. It's basically Talladega here. There's a lot of kind of drafting and super speedway action, and it's a great place to pass lots of cars. My recommendation is learn how to side draft and fight your way to the lead. It's the way to go. After the roller coaster, you're at the finish line, and that's a lap of the Nürburgring Nordschleife. You'll be doing many a lap here over the 24 hours, so make sure to learn it in the daytime and in the nighttime. Hopefully this all helps when you're out racing and sending it through the green hell in your races. I wish you the best of luck. I hope you all make it back safely. I'm probably going to be racing it this weekend myself. Last time I raced it, we actually crashed an Audi GT3 car so hard the rear wing looks like the Silverstone pit building, so our aim is to not do that again this time. If you found this video useful, feel free to leave a like, and you can subscribe to Overtake for many more sim racing videos. Otherwise, if you have any other tips, or if you found my German pronunciation terrible, which it probably was, feel free to let us know in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.